It's not the thing that's the issue, it's your relationship to the thing. And so when I was injured, and I had my first period of depression and worked through that, moved to Orkney. So we were just talking about that. I moved to Orkney and connected with nature again. And so the injury was slowly dissipating at that point, but I knew I needed a change. You know, sometimes where you reach a point in your life where something needs to shift, something internally needs to shift, you need to move. And often you take what you're working through with you. I've listened to some of your podcasts and you've went to Australia and different places. Sometimes it can give you like temporary relief from your stuff because you're maybe not around the same people or the same stuff. I used to think of it as like you take it in a wee rucksack with you. When I got to Orkney, it wasn't this kind of magical experience where I was completely alleviated from all the stuff. But I did have nature, I did have the sea, I did have my tent. And so I worked in a youth hostel.
So a backpackers hostel in Orkney?
Yeah. I just was looking for a job.
There's a lot of people in there?
Yeah, from all over the place. It was amazing. What was really cool about that point in my life is I wanted to get away and process my stuff by myself and meet people. Like, you maybe experienced this when you were traveling. Like, you meet people as you are in the moment. They don't know that your history. They don't know where you've been. They don't know where you're going. It's really liberating to just be who you are in the moment. I wasn't a runner anymore. I wasn't all the things that I'd attached to my identity in some ways.
I've had this debate with loads of people because they'll say things like, you can't run away from your problems, and yes, that's sort of true. You also sometimes can't figure out your problems until you're away from them. A lot of me moving to Australia, I was stuck in like pretty toxic friend groups. The best thing about moving to Australia was simply you could make more money doing shit jobs. I just found here the only jobs I had was like call centres and hospitality, and because the wages are so shit, you just feel like stuck. I couldn't see any way of getting out of that sort of trap of like wage to wage living, doing something I hated. And also like I had a pretty toxic relationship with my mum and stuff, and it was the first time I got away from all of it. And honestly, although money doesn't bring you happiness, it can alleviate stress. It won't work for everyone, obviously, but just blanket statements in general don't work, don't they? When people are like, you can't run away from your problems, and then people are like, I'll travel and we'll fix anyone. For me, it was the best thing I ever done. Like, it was the start of me figuring myself out.
Yeah, totally. I think that universal messages are comforting in some ways, and they apply to us at different chapters of our life. Then they sometimes don't resonate, you know, after we've went through something. Up until that injury though, so I left school without qualifications, grew up just me and my mum, grew up without a lot of money, and had this real drive that was kind of like nothing else was in my way, and that feeling of just wanting to get out of that situation. And so that's what led to the injury, because really my whole life I was doing too much. It was so difficult though, because I kind of left school without that belief in myself. I had a later diagnosis of dyslexia in my 20s at uni. My whole life I carried this shame that I wasn't academic enough, I wasn't good enough, but I still had this drive to get out of that situation, which can sometimes be an energy source in and of itself to move through that. But I just took on too much and led to burnout, led to injury.
People understanding burnout now is huge, I think.
I had no idea. I was just foggy. I went through college and then eventually got to uni. At uni, was working a night shift job, as well as doing youth work. Another kind of tangent, but that I left the community I grew up in. And so when I left that, you leave a part of yourself, although you know you want to move out of that type of community. Unfortunately, just with lots of different things, I wanted to move out of it. Youth work was the thing that was tying me back home. So every week from Stirling, I would travel home to this youth club, like 2 trains and a cycle. And then I was running on top of that and trying to race, and then getting into podcasts. But at a point where biohacking and veganism and paleo and CrossFit were kind of, it was people who were trying to teach you things about nutrition. It can become all consuming. It got to the point where it was all I was doing, and I was like trying to morning rituals, evening rituals, like it was taking up so much of my time. So I was still doing night shift.
Got 3 minutes, better get this cold shower in.
Yeah. Just everything, lists of things, everything to do with hacking your biology and living the most optimally. So
I hate all these words.
So some of the stuff is really interesting and can help at points in your life, but really when you're vulnerable, I was vulnerable. I think that's the biggest thing that I could share, that when you're vulnerable and you have low self-worth, all the things that you're trying to do to mask your low self-worth or whatever you're running away from will never fully meet the needs and change that. I was always trying to find the answer and getting some temporary relief from fasting or cold water showers or
some of them are good.
So, yeah, and that's why it works. That's why it sticks.
You get obsessed with doing all of them.
Yeah. It's not the thing, it's your relationship to the thing. So running now, I have a really balanced, joyful relationship with it. And I had to really reverse what I was doing and work out what I was using running for. And so now I don't use it for the same thing and all these things. So it's not the food that's the issue. It's your relationship with the food.